Well, good morning to you, and I'd like to begin today really by playing you a little bit of Cliff Richard. This is called Why Me?
Why me, Lord? What have I ever done to deserve He found one of the pleasures I've known? Tell me, Lord, what did I ever do that was worth loving You?
So, the Gospel this
For the
week,
kindness
we hear that famous story of Jesus going out into the wilderness. And I often used to ask myself, why did he do this? And I come to the conclusion, really, that I think what Jesus was doing was preparing himself, both spiritually, mentally, and physically, for the work that he was about to undertake. We're told the first line of the Gospel, it was the Spirit that led him out into the desert. So why did the Spirit do that? I think it is the Holy Spirit that gives Jesus strength, and you kind of see that at the end of the 40 days, because when he's at his most weak, when he's almost, I suppose, starved to death, really, so weak would he be as a human being, gone that length of time without any food. It's then, and only then, that the tempter appears and tries to tempt Jesus. And it's quite amusing in some ways. I like he takes Jesus to the parapet of the temple. And he shows him, he said, I'll give you all the kingdoms of the world if you kneel and worship me. Well, they weren't his to give. He has the presumption that he is Lord and Master of all he surveys. And I think sometimes we can fall into that trap if we're not very, very careful. And I think that when the last temptation comes and Jesus says to Satan, be off, and Satan does what he's told, he disappears. And I think that kind of shows, and it gives all of us hope, that Jesus, even in his weakness, his spirit is strong enough at that point to tell Satan to be off. So even in his very weakened state, his spirit is still so strong. And I think it's kind of a teaching for all of us, an example to us all, that if we, in our weakened state, those times when the tempter arrives and we follow temptation, if at that point we can remember our faith and our journey with God, then I think we can be strong. Paul writes it. St. Paul says, when you are weak, then you are strong. And I think this is what Paul means. If you are weak and at that moment can remember that Jesus is with you and he's pointing you to God, if you can remember that and turn to God in your weakness, then you're actually at your most powerful, your most strong. So I think that's a great message for all of us today. And I think that as we have begun now our Lenten journey, we remember that we are walking to Calvary with Jesus. And over the next few weeks, the story begins to unfold. The scribes and the Pharisees are definitely out to get Jesus. And then, of course, at the end, we hit Holy Week, and the story then kind of takes a pace. It's like a snowball rolling down a hill. There's no stopping it, and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger until the crucifixion and the resurrection. So I think if we can take anything from the gospel this week, it is, when you are weak, then you are strong. Like Jesus, in his weakness, he still has power to beat the devil. Be off, he says, and the devil did what he said. You can do that too. Take care. Keep strong.